So now that you have taken the first steps, we can talk about the concepts behind programming. And the first and most basic concept is variables. Variables, if you went to basic algebra classes, you already know what variables are. And you can skip the very first 2 minutes of the video or so. But just make sure to watch the end, because we will talk about some more in-depth and programming related topics, okay? So, as I said, variables are used to store data. You can either store data or manipulate it. And with variables, one does not need to know the value when one uses it, but rather a name to reference it. For example, I have a program that displays the user's age. I am 18. So I would say write 18 to the console. But my parents maybe are not 18. So I would say write maybe 50 to the console. What we can rather do is say, okay, get the user's input and store it in a variable called age. And then we write age. Okay? So with variables one can label and reference values. If you're not familiar with the concept of variables, you can just compare it like a box or with a box. You give the box a name, for example age, and then give it a value. So you put the value into the box. Okay, you put the value 18 into the box. I know it's physically not that possible, but abstractly thinking, it's a good example. And then when you write the program, you just hand the box over. So you just say write age instead of writing 18. Okay? If you don't understand it, as I said many times before in the introductory video, for example, it all becomes clear once we start programming with this concept. And this video is just so you can have a quick overview or come back once in a while. One thing that we have to talk about too is that variables have types, and this is what you have to watch even if you visited algebra classes, okay? Here. Variables have types, and variables basically are stored as ones and zeros in your computer's memory, okay? So you need to tell Visual Studio what type a variable has so that it can interpret the zeros and ones correctly. You can compare it to a dictionary, okay? The value inside the box is totally unnecessary if you cannot decipher what's stored inside. Just excuse my small spelling mistake here, I won't correct it because it takes some time. Just oversee it, please. Okay, now to the programming side. Before we can use a variable, we have to declare and initialize it. Declaring is, you say, okay, in the program I have a variable, and this is a name, this is a type. Initializing is to give it a first value. Okay, and this is important. If you write maybe age to the console and you have nothing stored in there, it's not automatically 0, but it's just no value. Okay, and then if it doesn't have a value behind it, your program is going to crash. Okay, so declaring, you say type and then var name. For example, integer, this is a whole number, so you don't have 1.0 or 1.01. For example, you just have 1, 2, 3, just whole numbers without fractions, for example. Okay, so we just say type integer, also int, int, space, and then var name, age, int, age. And then when you initialize it, you say age equals 18. Or if you want to do it at once, and most people do, you say int age equals 0. If you do it this way, you can give it some default value so that the program doesn't crash if you don't give it a right value. Okay. I thank you all for watching, and I hope that you have taken something out of this video. In the next video we will apply this knowledge, this concept, and fill it with like rather practical things. So we really start writing programs that extend or exceed just writing hello world, okay? Variables are one of the most basic principles or paradigms in programming, and it's not that hard. But in the beginning, when you don't apply it and don't program and don't practice, it's very hard. But just make sure that you are not too frustrated if you don't understand everything at the first time. Okay? See you in the next video. It will become a lot clearer, and I promise that. Okay?